Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again tonight on the Cosmic Connections program. This is the September 23rd program as we're here. And normally I would be welcoming Blanca to come on and be joining us, but she is not going to be with us tonight. So hold on. I'm watching here just as what you're saying is how the sound is coming out on Facebook, folks. Blanca and Alan have a business. They are self-employed and they install signs, your electronic neon signs for businesses. And every once in a while they get caught up into one where they can't get away. And she basically had sent me a text message that she didn't think she was going to be able to make it on time for the program tonight. So folks, right now, so there it is, just me. And I'm the one that is here. And so all looks good, all sounds good. I'm getting some notices coming through. Thank you very much. So, and okay. So, well, with that, folks, again, so welcome to the program tonight. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to make a couple announcements on some stuff that's going on. Again, we have plenty of room for the next two workshops that are, the registration is already open, and I would really encourage you to get there. Folks, if you really want to, I've changed so much of the programming content. And when I did Dallas a couple weeks ago, the people just said it was absolutely wonderful. The people that had been there before, they loved what the new content was. It's all about who are we? Why are we here? Why is this money coming through? What is our purpose? What's happening in this world? What's my responsibility in this shift and change that's coming up? Okay? Now, Paul Pace, you keep sending me a message on Facebook. Knock it off, because I can't be reading you and doing my program at the same time. Okay? Either that or I'm going to have to delete you. Okay? Because you keep popping up on my window and I don't know why. So don't go sending that stuff to me anymore. So, but again, thank you very much. I'm sorry I had to make a little bit. Some of you are saying the volume's a little bit low. So I'll go ahead and turn it up a little bit more here. And so that should be working there a little bit better on the volume. And I'll move that microphone just a little bit closer up to where I am right here. So, okay? So, but some of you folks also, sometimes you may need to just turn up the volume on your computer, because when I tested this, I've got my volume up pretty high on the microphone here. So, but let me just check one more thing just to make sure, because for me it's saying that the microphone, I need it louder both on the phone and the computer. Folks, I've already got mine set up pretty high. And so that means you probably need to turn up your volume on your phone or your computer. Because I don't know. Otherwise, I can't. I don't know what else to do, because, I've got my volume up here very high right now on the computer that is here with the microphone that's here. Let me make sure that everything is set up. Oh, I know. Hold on one thing. Let me make sure I've got the correct microphone set up. Okay. Yes, I do. I have the correct microphone that I'm using. And because sometimes, I can be using the microphone off the camera versus the set microphone that is there. Okay, well, that's it, because others you're saying it's sounding good. Okay, thank you very much. You see, normally I have Blanca who can tell me what's going on, and she's not here giving me the feedback. So, but, okay, so this coming Saturday, we're in Chicago with the workshop. We have plenty of room there. Then on October 10th, we're in Atlanta, and we still have a lot of room there, folks. And remember, if money is a problem for you, I have the scholarship rates, okay? But this is a great time with new material for what's coming through. If you really want to be involved in what's going on with the release of these funds and understanding what is there and what your purpose and what your place is. And I just want to reiterate, I have always said, when it comes time to pay out, I always start with the most recent workshop and those that attend it, and then I work back from there, because when I've got thousands of people that are going to have to be processed, I'm going to have some sort of a fair method to determine who to start with, and that's what I've been saying for a long time. So if you want to be up front on the list, and folks, just think how long it takes to process a couple thousand people when it comes time to the currency exchange. So that's what I do. I start with the most recent workshop. I work back from there to the other attended ones, and then from there I look at my list and who's probably been to the most of them, and that's how I do it. And it's because, folks, if I don't have these workshops, if I don't have you coming in, I don't get to do this program. that is the only source of funding that I have that allows me to keep going, because I don't ask for donations, I don't charge anything, I don't sell anything. So the workshops are my only source of revenue beyond what is my normal, retirement income that I have coming in, to be able to make everything go, to pay my bills, and be able to keep myself going. So that's why it's important that I really appreciate you folks coming. Now, so this coming Saturday is Chicago, October 10th is Atlanta, and then October 24th, I've had to shift the things around because it's all dependent upon who's allowing us to have meetings in their hotels with the COVID-19 scenario. It's different in every state or every county. So October 24th is going to be back here in my home area in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Here in Fort Lauderdale, October 24th. I'm leaving November 7th open at this time. And then November 21st, I had listed the potential of Amsterdam, but instead we're going to Oslo, Norway on November 21st. We've got a great support group that are based in Norway, and if I do it there locally for them, I can get enough attendance to make sure that all my expenses are paid, because when you fly from the United States all the way to Norway, your airfare is a little higher, your hotel's a little more expensive. So I just want to, again, make sure I cover all my expenses. And I know if I go to Oslo, we can do that. And there's a great, great group of people that are there. Always thankful for them showing up. So 10th is Atlanta. The 24th is Fort Lauderdale. November 7th is open. November 21st is Oslo. And then December 5th, I'm going to do something I've never done before, going to a place, because I wanted to do Southern California, but they're not allowing us to be there. So Vegas, baby. We're going to do Las Vegas on December 5th. Now, I'll go ahead and etch that one in, because that might be a time that you might want to get away for a few days and come on down to Vegas, baby, and stick around for a few days, and so we can have some fun there. So we're looking December 5th. So that's the announcements about the workshops, folks. And again, I've had a great bit of change to the material. The people absolutely love it. What is there? I'm able to extensively go in and answer all of your questions about the currency exchange, because when I'm here online, I'm somewhat limited in what I can share because of non-disclosure agreements. And also that the fact that when you put something out on the internet, you have absolutely no control over somebody else taking it and totally abusing it. You've heard me say now that there are software programs that they could take this, download it, record it, and then take the digital content of my voice and then type in what they want it to say, and it will use what is called the phonic digitation of my voice, and it will make it look like that I am saying what they want me to say. And even though the words may not match up to the video, you don't notice it that much, so they can turn it around and make it say whatever they want it to say. That's what happens with the new software that is available. So I always have to be a little more cautious about when I'm here on the program. But when I'm in a workshop, everybody there is registered. I basically have everybody's name, address, and email. I know how to get in touch with anybody, if anybody's there, and it's a small group. So that's why I can share so much more there than what I can here online. Okay, with that, I don't have anything else specifically, and Blanca hasn't come back on, and we've been here for about 10 minutes, so I think it's just time to get on with the program. So tonight, the program, I was going to talk about what is called politics, power, and money. I'm going to reflect some of the stuff that's been going on recently with the death of Justice Ginsburg. I had sent an email out, and there was this one lady, she responded back, and she says, I have a burning question for you. For a long time, so long ago you said there are a few things none on the Hill will ever speak about, or else, or something like that. What it comes down to, it's about always, always having the power of being in majority. Congress will do whatever it takes, say whatever it takes, give whatever stories need to be told to try to convince people into voting their way so that they can be in the majority and have the power. Now, they're not always so concerned about the president. Now, yes, in a short period of span they are. But here's why. Presidents come and go. Their policies can come and go. Members of Congress stick around a lot longer. The real power people have been around 20 and 30 years, but even they at a point in time will come and go. The most powerful position or the most powerful act that a president has is the appointing of a member of the Supreme Court, especially when the Senate is of his same party, because then the Senate has the majority votes. I should say the majority in the Senate is of his same party. So here you have a Republican president with a Republican Senate majority who's going to back up pretty much the person that the president is going to nominate to be to the Supreme Court. And why is that so important? Because those are lifetime appointments. Now let me talk about what is called the political process. There are three branches of government. You have the legislative branch, which nationally is Congress. You have the administrative branch, which is the president and his administration. And then you have the judicial branch. And when law is made, it's not just the legislative branch creating statutory law that creates law. All three of the branches have their own ability to create law. Now, it usually always first starts with the legislative branch, i.e. Congress. They pass a bill, and the president signs it, and it goes in and it becomes law. But what happens is somebody says, I don't like this law. I think I have a different opinion on this, and I don't think it applies this way. So then what they do, they take it to court. They challenge this law before the court system, the judicial branch of government. And so that's the purpose, predominantly the purpose of the courts, is to determine and answer when there's differences of opinions between what Congress passed as law versus what a citizen believes is the right that they have under that law. And then so when Congress then makes that, I should say when it goes before the courts, and let's say it starts at what is called the district court level. And let's say the courts say, Congress, what you passed is unconstitutional and we don't believe it's correct, so we're going to say this is what it's going to be. So guess what? That then is how the judicial branch creates law. But let's say the citizen says, I don't like what the court did. I don't like their decision, so they can appeal it. And then it goes to the appellate court. And then if they don't like the decision of the appellate court, they can challenge it and take it to the Supreme Court. If it goes through the challenging and the appellate process, the Supreme Court is always the end of the road. And the Supreme Court, their decision is pretty much the final decision. So let's say this is what happens. Congress passes a law, and then the administration, the administrative branch of government, implements it and puts it into practice. And an individual citizen says, I don't like that, and so they challenge it in court, and then the court comes back and makes another decision. So, Congress passes the statutory law. The administration sets rules of how that is to be administratively carried out. That then is how the administrative branch is putting out what is called administrative law. But then it gets challenged in courts, and the courts come back and say, no, this is how it's supposed to be, and so that is what is called judicial law. So that is how all three branches of government can actually create law. But all three have a check and balance on each other. If the administration doesn't like what the legislature did, the president has the right to veto their bill, and then they got to get a 2/3 vote to override that. Then even if it gets passed, the administration may not necessarily like the final outcome of it, and even the administration can take it to court. Then when the courts make the decision in the normal process, that's the end of the line, and their decision is it, unless they want to amend the Constitution. And that is how the judicial branch can override the legislative branch can override the judicial branch, is because Congress says, we're going to propose an amendment to the Constitution. But here's what's interesting. The power doesn't really reside with Congress. Congress can't amend the Constitution. They can only propose an amendment, and then it goes to the states. And 2/3, 36 of the state legislatures have to pass it to ratify that constitutional amendment proposal from Congress. When the states ratify it, then the Constitution is amended. And that is, again, how the legislative branch can override a judicial branch decision. But here's where the real power is, and this is what I experienced. State legislatures can call what is called a constitutional convention, and it takes 2/3 of the states to do it. They call what is called a constitutional convention, and then they can amend the Constitution on the spot if they have the votes to do it. So you see, the real power was always designed that it's with the states, not the federal government. And what we have seen over the years is this, what I call a devolution, where the public has this tendency to think the federal government are the ones who have all the power, and they don't. When you go back and read the Constitution, the federal government only has the power that the states give to it, other than the few things that are mentioned in the Constitution that they can do themselves. Now, but it doesn't happen very often with the states because it takes a lot of coordination to get 36 states to be on agreement that they're going to come together in a constitutional convention and amend the Constitution, because they don't like what Congress is doing, what the president is doing, or what the Supreme Court has decided in the judicial decision process. In fact, in the 50 years of history now of our country, there has never been a state called Constitutional Convention to amend the Constitution. Now that's the process. So, but when you look at the fact that the power that resides in the appointment of a Supreme Court justice, those people are there for 20 to 30 years. And they are the end of the line and you would say 80 to 90% of the time, they are the end of the line of the final decision makers of what is law for us in our country. For a couple of decades now, we've had a court that's been very close, 5-4 majorities. 5 liberals, 5 conservatives, and even recently a couple of the conservatives that they thought were conservatives and went with the more liberal side. So it's been a very balanced court. And now you have Justice Ginsburg passing away, and President Trump now has the opportunity to appoint a new Supreme Court justice that the Senate, Republican-controlled Senate, will verify. And it only takes, basically the 50 votes in the Senate to do it. The Republicans have 53 votes. So they could have 3 Republican senators go with the Democrats, and then you have a 50-50 tie, and then the vice president comes in as the tie-breaking vote. So they could still give up 3 of their 53 votes and still appoint the new Supreme Court justice. And what's happening right now, the Democrats are screaming, wait till after the election, wait till after the election. Of course, because they want the election to shift the balance of power so you don't have a Republican Senate and you can't get it done. Here's the bottom line. There is nothing in the Constitution or in law that says they have to wait. The power of politics always resides with the majority party. Why in the world would a Republican president and a Republican majority Senate wait with the risk of losing it all and having nothing and to not have the person that they want? Now, the word going around is that there's this woman from the U.S., I think it's one of the district courts, that she is the leading candidate. Her name escapes me right off, but she's the leading candidate to be appointed. and she's a conservative. So what that is going to do is going to throw the court into a 6-3 conservative versus liberal balance. That means we're going to basically have a conservative-based Supreme Court for the next 15 to 20 years. The two most senior justices that would either be leaving or end up dying like Ginsburg did are on the liberal side. So see, that is one of the most important decisions that voters make when they vote for the president, is that if you absolutely believe that this is a president that leans, if you're conservative or liberal, whatever side you're on, that if your president is going to have the ability to appoint Supreme Court justices, that you're going to want to vote for the party and the president that's going to reflect your values. President Trump has already appointed 2 Supreme Court justices. This will be his 3rd, and he's doing that all in 1 term. That's rare, folks. It's very rare that a conservative or leaning president versus, even if it was a liberal leaning president, because some presidents are moderate, it's very rare that a president leaning to one side on the political spectrum has the ability to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices that ends up making the court go to their side for 15 to 20 or even 25 years. That's why this is turning out to be such a chaotic issue. And it's interesting, though, what they're talking about. There's a ton of spin that's coming out of the Democrats around all this. Now, they're complaining. He says, well, when Obama was there, the Republicans in the Senate, they said to wait until after the election, and they didn't appoint Obama's person. But because that was their prerogative as the majority party. The majority party has the power to make the decisions. You had a Democrat president in Obama with a Republican majority Senate, and they weren't going to approve his liberal appointee. That's their prerogative. See, so all they're really doing is operating in the prerogatives of what they have, and more than that, they're fulfilling the wishes of the people who elected them to be there. If you understand the real power of voting, people always say, well, I vote for the individual. No, you don't. You're voting for the party first. The party of the individual carries far, far more weight than the individual. There are 435 members in the House of Representatives in our Congress. How much power does one individual have? Well, if they're not in the 3 top powerful seats, they don't have much power at all. They can't get anything done by themselves. Politics is not an individual contact sport, okay? It's a team contact sport, and they're fighting over ideas is what they are doing. And it is the team that gets anything done, and the team is the majority party because they have the votes to set the rules. They have the votes to decide for what bills come up to the floor to be voted on, and they have the votes to decide what's going to get passed. I was in our state legislature for 12 years. My first 4 years, I was in the majority party. And then I was a House member for my first 8 years. And then what happened, we were in a state where we had 98 members, and we actually went into a 49-49 tie. And for 3 years, I was in a legislature where we had a tie, which was extremely rare. Now, nobody had any really power, but what was really interesting, there was a lot of cooperation from both sides because nothing got done without both sides agreeing to it. So what happened is nothing that was on the partisan side of either party got done. But a lot of good administrative work got done in those 3 years because there was no controversy around those issues. And then there was a special election, and in my 8th year, I went into the minority. And it was like, this sucks. Why? Because all of a sudden you don't have a voice anymore. Then I moved over to the Senate. And in the Senate, for the first 2 years, I was in the majority party. And I was a chairman of a committee. And it was amazing the power and the weight in the decision making that I had in that committee by being the chairman of a committee in a majority party, because I basically had the right to say, these are the bills that are coming up for hearing in my committee, these are the bills that are going to get voted on, and these are the bills that are coming out. Unless my committee members of my own party said, Dave, we don't like you making that decision, we want to do this. They would have to come in and basically be very clear that they wanted to, in essence, go against my decision. Now, we did have a cooperative agreement in that, but it shows you there. And then when it came to bills being decided, the Democrats, who were in the minority, never had any say in what bills came up to for a vote unless they worked with our Republican leadership saying this was a bill that was important for them and it wasn't controversial and it wasn't partisan. So we would sit in caucus, what was called, the Senate Republicans, and there was 27 of us out of 49, and the 27 of us would decide what bills were going to get voted on. The power of politics resides with the majority party, and that is why all the members of Congress, it's always about getting somebody from your party elected to make sure you have the majority. When you look at what's going on in the politics in our country, we have pretty much had what was called a do-nothing Congress now for almost 20 years. Why? Because we've been so split. There's only been 2 occasions that I can recall right off for 2 years where a single party that had the majority between the president, the House, and the Senate. That's only happened a couple times. When they have that, they have the ability to move their agenda issues. Now, but let's go back to Congress. 435 members in the House, 100 members in the Senate, 535 members, but guess what? There's 5 of those 535 that are the power decision makers. Those 5 basically have the ability to veto almost anything that comes before them. Who are those 5? In the House, it's the Speaker of the House. The Speaker can say, I don't like that bill, it's not coming up. The second one is the Majority Leader. It's the Majority Leader that pretty much determines what bills are coming up for a vote. And the Majority Leader can say, don't like that bill, it's not coming up for a vote. And then the third person is the Chairman of the Appropriations Committee, the Money Committee. Because if you will have a bill that's going to have any type of an expenditure to it, not only does it have to go through the Policy Committee, it has to go through the Money Committee, the Appropriations Committee, and money has to be assigned and appropriated for it to be fulfilled. If those 3 can say individually for the bills that come up before them, say, I don't like this, that's going to be there unless a majority of those caucus members want to override them. And you can only do that a couple of times. Let me give an illustration. Let's say you're on a football team. And basically the Speaker of the House is the coach. And the Majority Leader is the quarterback. And the rest of you are just team members. And the majority of them are kind of like offensive linemen. You're there to protect the quarterback. And the quarterback comes in with a play from the coach, the Speaker, saying, we're going to run this bill. And you as an offensive lineman is going to say, I'm not going to do that. It's like the quarterback calls on the football team, we're going to run a sweep left, and you're going to say as an offensive lineman, nope, I'm doing a sweep right. You can only do that a couple of times before they will ostracize you, shut you down, and shut you out because you're showing that you're no longer a team member. You're not cooperating with the team. And when it comes time that you want to get something done, they will remind you, you didn't play with us as a team, so why should we play with you and give you what you want? That is why you see a lot of compromise taking place amongst the members in Congress, because it takes compromise amongst the team members to get anything done. Now hold on here. I've got my Alexa going on behind me, and the music just stopped and some stuff came up, so I need to shut it off. Alexa, stop the radio. Alexa, shut down. I always have some really nice soft music going on in the background because I always enjoy that. And I forgot to shut it off before we started tonight. So you can see the power of politics. Number one, it resides with the majority party. And I said there's the 5 people. There's the 3 members of the House, the Speaker, the Majority Leader, and the Appropriations Chairman. And then when you go over to the Senate, you got the Senate Majority Leader and the Finance Chairman, because they don't have a Speaker. Those 5 are the power brokers. They are the ones that basically have veto power of over anything that comes before them. And if you aren't working with them and you don't have their approval, folks, the reality is you're just a seat filler. You're just filling a seat, and you're a vote maker and a seat filler, and they're asking you to be a team player to get anything done. That's the reality of politics in America. And here's what it comes down to. What drives those 5? The money. It's always, remember how they say money is the mother's milk of politics. The money is what drives it. Because see, those 5, they recognize to get the majority, you have to have money to be able to get your key people elected to have the majority votes in either the House or the Senate. And the president doesn't get elected without a lot of money. A president has to raise scores of millions of dollars just to get the nomination of their party in the primary before they have the money to run as the party's candidate to be president. Here's a great illustration, and here's what happens. The money people, the power money people, what I call the cabal people, they are the ones that kind of get together and determine this is our candidate that we're going to support with the money. And they don't really care about is it Republican or Democrat, because they know if they put up the money for the president to get elected and that president doesn't get there without them, they remind that president very quickly after he's elected, you weren't here without us, now you play ball with us or else. I'm going to go back to the primary election 4 years ago, 2016. I remember watching the early debates of the Republican primary. The Democrats had pretty already decided that, it was going to be, in 2016, it was going to be Hillary. But in this debate, there were, if I remember right, there were 12 Republican candidates there. One stood out, and that was Trump, because he was the guy that wasn't raising any money. But of the other 11, which were your traditional politicians, members of Congress, governors, former governors, things like that, there was one that had outraised money-wise the other 11 combined. And who was that? Jeb Bush. Another Bush. It was very clear of what I call the cabal power system had decided that Jeb Bush was their candidate. He was the man that they wanted to be there as the next Republican candidate to be the president of the United States. And it was pretty much already decided that Hillary was going to be the Democrat choice. Because why? Both of them would bow to the money. They both would bow to the money. And it was very clear. We have had a history for over 100 years in our country that presidents, whoever got elected, had to end up, in so many words, bowing to the money people that got them there when it came to critical decision making. And what I mean critical, it was laws or bills or policies that had a direct impact upon those money controllers. Now, petty stuff, they didn't care about the petty stuff. They would just let it go. They wouldn't involve themselves in that. And then all of a sudden, here comes Donald Trump. He didn't need their money. And in fact, he wasn't a part of the what you call the cabal money game. He refused to be a part of that club. And he would not play their game. And he used his own money. Now, regardless of your party, what I'm going to say is, fortunately, the Republicans were waking up and saying, we don't want any more of this elitist control politics. Because if it would have been Jeb Bush, or Hillary Clinton that got elected, that means we would have had a Clinton, a Bush, or an Obama, either as the president or the vice president for 36 years. We have to go all the way back to Ronald Reagan in 1980. 8 years. George Bush was the vice president. Clinton, 8 years as president after him. George Bush the Jr., 8 years as president after him. Obama, 8 years with Obama, but with Hillary Clinton right there in his hip. And now she was the favorite to become the president. So what we saw was happening in our country was this aristocracy of these three controlled families, Clintons, Bushes, and Obamas, that were controlling American politics. And fortunately, the Republicans rose up and said, no, we're not going to do that. And if you remember in the 26th election, all the polls had Clinton winning hands down. I mean, they were putting her at a 95 to 98% probability she was going to win. There was one poll that had her at a 99.6% probability she was going to win. And these pollsters were doing their honest polling, but they were so far off. Why were they so far off? Because they didn't poll what were called the forgotten people. The people that they said didn't have a history of always showing up to vote, because those forgotten people were the people that didn't want to participate in this political aristocracy. The Bushes and the Clintons and the Obamas. And when Trump comes up, they see a man who's not a part of the political system. He hasn't been a part of the problem. He's not being abused by money. He's using his own money. So what was called the quiet, forgotten people showed up to vote. And those people don't show up in the polls. Right now, they're saying that Biden is strongly leading the Trumps in the polls all across the country. But folks, there's a very high probability the same thing is going to happen again. And the pollsters haven't made their adjustments. And I can tell you one thing. If Trump gets elected again by a decent margin, the pollsters, their credibility is gone. Nobody will trust them anymore, because this will be 2 presidential elections in a row that they were so far off base for what was there. The power in politics is in Congress as having the majority party. And the power in politics with the president is having the money behind the president. So if your money can control the president and those 5 members of Congress I mentioned, you now control politics in the United States with your money. Money is always the biggest controller of politics. And Trump is the first president that we've had in well over 100 years that didn't have to bow to the money. That's really important to understand, because we understand what that does for us. And so right now, what's happening in that process is that there's a situation going on with the selection of after the power of money in politics, the next most powerful thing is who gets to appoint the Supreme Court members, because they will determine that. Now, even Trump came right out and said it's extremely important that he appoints and that the next justice gets confirmed before the election, because if we go back to the year 2000, we remember we had this extremely close race between George Bush and Al Gore, and it came down to the state of Florida, and remember the hanging chads, and at the end of the day, it was the U.S. Supreme Court made the final decision on who the winner was. They couldn't get all the chads out, and they couldn't get the ballots counted in time. So then it went to the Florida State Supreme Court, and the Florida State Supreme Court ruled in favor of Al Gore. And then it was challenged. The Bush campaign challenged that, and they took it to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court says George Bush was the winner of the election. So in a closely disputed election, it can come down to the Supreme Court deciding who the winner is. And we are coming up to an election that might be a probability. We could end up having a very close election that's going to be severely disputed because of all the controversy around the mail-in ballots. And does the ballots get in time to get counted? And they are going to get counted? And is it going to be done correctly? It could come down to, again, the Supreme Court. And that's why it's so important for Trump and the Republicans that they get their person in before the election. So, folks, it's going to happen, okay? You can pretty much take that to the bank, that they are going to appoint, I think, the next justice, and they're going to vote on it before the election, which is now, 4.5, 5.5 weeks away, something like that. I don't have the calendar in front of me. And what does that have to do with us? Because now I want to go back to my notes. We are living in an era, in a period of time right now, there's a lot of chaos that is going on. We're seeing the protesting on the streets that are going on out there because, the irritation, the agitation, the Antifa groups. And there's a lot of this report saying that basically George Soros is the person that is, basically been funding them. Regardless of if he is or if he is not, the issue is there's no question there's somebody is funding this Antifa group that is creating all this chaos. They have been very clear that they want to be chaotic, they want to create chaos, and they want to create change. And the word coming out is that regardless of who wins the election in November, it's going to be very chaotic, and we can be pretty well guaranteed if Trump wins the election, you're going to see Antifa going wild. Now, fortunately, the police are starting to step up and shutting down some of the heavy rioting protests that are creating damage. We saw it today in Louisville because of the court decision that came out there that the police had to be out on the streets to shut down the riots. Folks, this chaos is going to continue. I am getting reports from credible people. I'm getting reports from a number of what I call very credible, either prophetic or channeled messages that are saying this isn't going to slow down, folks. The chaos you've only seen the front end of it. And this chaos is going to probably continue on into the spring. And here's the other thing that's going to come out of it. What we haven't seen is the very high potential for a massive global financial collapse. Depending upon whose reports you are reading, we are somewhere between 30 and 50 million people in America are out of work because of the COVID-19 shutdowns. They are saying that even in San Francisco, is that 80% of the businesses in downtown San Francisco are closed. And they're saying 50% of those businesses will never open again. They're saying that 40 to 50% of all the restaurants that have closed will never open again. And we're talking very large chains that are already on the verge of filing bankruptcy and that are probably going to be gone. Olive Garden, Applebee's, there's another one I'm going blank on right away. That's, the sister to the Olive Garden restaurant. They're talking about, these are chains, major chains that are going into bankruptcies. There are clothing store chains that are going into bankruptcies, big name clothing stores. There are literally millions of people that are working in the service industries, retail, restaurant service industries that are out of work. And guess what? They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their home mortgages. If you're out of a job and you're getting unemployment, but your unemployment is only a third of what your salary was, and you've got limited income, what are you going to do? You're going to feed your family first. You're going to make sure you got a car that's running and gas and taken care of so you can do the transportation needs that you have. Then you're going to take care of your personal things. And the last thing you'll do is pay your rent. You'll let that go because you can always go to another house somewhere else. What does that mean? We're going to start seeing massive amounts of bankruptcies and foreclosures. And we haven't hit that point yet. It hasn't accumulated yet where it's gone through the process where we've seen that. But what they're saying is that's going to start coming up in the spring. In the spring is where we're going to see this massive financial collapse. There are very credible people that are saying if there was ever a time you need to save up some money and make sure it wasn't in the banks, this is the time to do it. To make sure that you had money in a safe and secure place and not left in the banks, because there's a very high probability the banks some of them are going to collapse. There's a high probability. Now, that is the normal scenario. The only way that that doesn't happen, and it's why we haven't seen it yet, is because the Federal Reserve prints up these couple $1 trillion of fiat money out of nothing and just puts it out there and puts it out into circulation. Well, what does that create? That creates then hyperinflation. So folks, we're almost certain we're going to see either mass collapse of the economy or hyperinflation coming our way. We're already starting to see the early signs of the inflation. We're already starting to see it. So plan on that, prepare for that, and be aware of it. Now, with all of that, how do we handle all of that? What's our responsibility? If you want to see good shift and change, it's really extremely important that we rise above the chaos in our thoughts. Remember last week I talked about how much our thoughts create this vibrational energy. And our thoughts literally put out these little tiny, what are called quantum energetic particles called memes. And these memes are what brings energy together to create our experiences. Everything that we experience in our lives, we are creating. We're either creating it collectively, we're creating it subconsciously as individuals, or even consciously as individuals. Most of what we do comes from subconscious habitual actions. And it's the subconscious thoughts and these memes really don't come out of here. They come out of the brain that's in the solar plexus. There's a second brain down in the solar plexus area. And it's that brain, that second solar plexus brain, that really is what creates those memes. Now, I show from up here because, that's just our common understanding. We think about thoughts coming up from here. But they come from the whole parts of the body is where they really come from. So these memes that come out of us energetically based on how we feel and think, they create the things that we experience because they're all energetic based. It's all based on energy frequencies that we produce from our thoughts. If we want to see a healing take place in our country and in our world, if we want to see some peace beginning to develop in our country and in our world, it's extremely important as this chaos continues to develop that we don't lower ourselves and get involved in it. The difference of what I talk about is whether you are a participant or an observer. As soon as you participate in the chaos, you have lowered your frequency thoughts to the same level, and you're no longer working to overcome it. You're feeding it to continue to go on. So you're feeding the problem as soon as you move into judgment of the problem and get involved in the problem. Now, we live in a world where we can't go into denial because that's just another form of escape. But what I said is you be the observer versus the participant. So If there's chaos going on out there in the streets, there's riots, protesting, fires, and violence that is going on, a normal reaction is to want to enter into judgment and say, those guys are wrong, they're bad, they should be going to prison and jail, arrest them, blah, 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 blah. You've lowered yourself to a energy, frequency, meme-producing level of judgment. And that frequency is operating at the same level or even within the same arena as their actions. So now we're feeding the problem. And we're giving it energy. We're giving it its food to continue it to go on. So instead of being the participant, you be the observer. You look at it, you say, well, I'm sad that that's happening. I'm sorry that that's happening. Obviously, they are people that are just crying out to be loved. Because, see, violence, anger, heavy, critical, protesting actions all come from the lack of love. Violence and love are not compatible. They're not compatible. They just don't. They cannot be compatible actions. So what's happening is, and they're acting in these protesting and violent manner, down inside, they're saying, please love me. And our job is to love them as they are. That's where Jesus said to love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. He had three very, very strong comments that he had made. Number one was to love your neighbor as yourself. Number two, do not judge, where I shared in the recent newsletter, Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, it says, judge not lest you will be judged in return. And number three was to always unconditionally forgive. When you're forgiving, you're not making a statement of it, is it right or is it wrong? The forgiveness is not about the person you're forgiving. The forgiveness is about you. Forgiveness is for you to keep yourself in a place of peace. And when we keep ourselves in a place of peace, that is where these meme thoughts have their greatest power of energy creation. When the mind is at peace, the energy that comes out of the mind is a very powerful creative energy that has a lot of power energy behind it to be placed into motion. As soon as you go into anger, as soon as you go into fear, as soon as you go into judgment, and etc., and things like that, your energy drops. Your creative energy just drops. So when we see this chaotic stuff going on around us, when we see the chaos taking place, when we see all this crazy stuff that's going on, when we see what's happening in the political campaigns, when we see what's happening with Congress and all the judgment that's going on around there, just be the observer. Be the observer. Work on putting yourself in their position and says, well, why do we think that they're doing that? Always come from the place of love and compassion and forgiveness toward them. You can critique it. Now, here's the big question. How do you know if you're looking at it as a participant versus looking at it through an observer? You will notice it in the feelings and emotions in your body. Because you see, your emotions and your feelings are the energy level of your thoughts. When you're participating in an action, when you're judging in an action, the energy of judgment is low vibrational energy. The energy of being critical and negative and condemning is very low vibrational energy. And you want to know where you will feel it the most? The feelings that come out of your solar plexus area. What do you feel there? Learn how to get totally in touch with your feelings, because your feelings are telling you the energy, frequency, vibration of your thoughts. And it's the vibration of the thoughts that is critical. When you're just the observer, you'll be in the state of peace, and you'll feel the peace. You will feel the peace in your body versus the agitation that's in your body. And that's how you can tell the difference of whether you're observing or you're judging. It's how you feel in your body. We as a collective haven't done, as a humanity, we haven't done a very good job of understanding the importance and power of understanding the feelings and the emotions that go through our bodies, because they are the barometers of the frequency of your thoughts. And it's the thought frequencies that are creating the experiences that you are having in your life. Because like energy attracts like energy. I was reading this comment. No, I was listening to a program within the last week. And the whole question came up is that why is it that bad or horrible things happen to good people? And it's the difference is the energy of their behavior versus the energy of the internal thoughts. You can have a person who's an absolutely wonderful person in their outward behavior. They're loving, they're caring, they're giving, they're compassionate, they're involved, they do absolutely wonderful things, and with outward behavior, they can be the most wonderful person around. But when you go into the world of the inner thoughts, it's a completely different world. You see, the person can be a very outward, loving, caring behavior person, but inside they're extremely judgmental and critical in their thoughts about who they're delivering the care to. Let's say a person is involved in some humanitarian aid projects. And it's wonderful that they're doing this and they're volunteering their time and they're helping these people in need. But inside, that person can be having thoughts of being very judgmental and negative and critical toward the person that they're working with. It could be a homeless person. It could be a drug addict. And they're saying, why are you involved in these drugs? You're just destroying yourself. Blah, blah, blah. And they just go on and on with negative thoughts. So what is happening? The internal frequency of the thoughts are very negative. Like energy attracts like energy experiences into your life. It's not the actions, the external behavior actions. It's not the words that you say, it's the thoughts that you're having. The words are an extension of your thought. Behaviors can have ulterior motivations behind them. And that's the difference of why you see some people that are wonderful people in behavior, but they're having all kinds of bad things happening in their lives. It's usually because of that reason. The key is getting in touch with the energy frequency of your thoughts, and you will know what the energy frequency of those thoughts are based around the emotions and the feelings in your body being produced by those thoughts. Because your emotions are the energy of your thoughts. It's the energy of these memes that are being produced. So, politics, power, and money is what I talked about tonight. And I think I'm kind of getting ready to wrap up because I've been going for almost an hour, a longer program than what I thought it'd be tonight for it being just me here. So I'm ready to basically call it a quits, except I know I always allow you to have the opportunity to call in if you have questions or comments. And again, that call-in number, if you would like to have questions or comments, it's 515-605-9356. Again, 515-605-9356. You call in, press 1 on your touch-tone phone, and a little item here comes up, and this is when you're on Blog Talk Radio. I have a little hand that comes up and says that you would like to come on the air. So I do have one person, and we'll go directly to that person, and that's area code 203. So here it's coming up. Area code 203, you're on the air. This is Dave. What can I help you with?
Hi, Dave. Yes, this is Peter. I was wondering if you just answer some basic questions about like 800 numbers coming out for the RV
Sure.
payouts, and then the Sarah and the Sarah, they've both been enacted, but you're not going to hear about it because it's not going to be publicly announced until after any of the groups get paid out, which we're supposed to be paid out, the people that listen to the internet groups, this week. Now, they said it could be delayed because it's a moving target, but they're seriously, both the online groups that I keep close contact with are saying basically the same thing. So I just wondering, are they following a real target here, or is this just going to keep lingering on like it has? I mean, you've hinted about this before, so I'm not sure if you have any indications.
Yes, I do. I haven't hinted. I have been very direct for over 4 years. The people of the internet groups that are proposing the 800 numbers and you're going to go into a processing center, none of that is going to happen. I challenged them starting 4 years. Now, let me finish. 4 years ago, I challenged them and says, you're talking about people getting 800 numbers, going in and getting paid for their dong, their dinar, or zim, and the number of people you're talking about and the rates you're proposing are going to cost about $15 to $20 trillion. That's not an exaggeration. Just do their math of what they talk about. Just do the math. Where is this $15 to $20 trillion coming from? Who has it and who's going to put it out for them? I challenged them and I said, where's them? And I was polite when I did it. When my stuff was being posted on their site, and this was dinar recaps, and I said, where's your money coming from? And after about 2 months of challenging me, they blocked me from their site. They refused to answer the question, and they have never answered that question. You will notice all those people can never, never, never tell you who has the money, how they're getting it, and where it's coming from. They never address that issue. And this has been going on for over 4 years, Peter. And they're saying every week it's next week. Every week it's next week, and they've been doing that for 4 years. It ain't going to happen.
Well, you're consistent because you've been...
It ain't going to happen, Peter.
Wow, because they don't want to be challenged.
I know. Listen, here's what I have been very consistent. Are there private currency exchanges? Yes. They're private. And those people, they know who has the money, where it's coming from, and how they got it. And on top of that, those exchanges are approved by the quiet parts of U.S. Treasury. U.S. Treasury can control what money gets released in this country. And I can guarantee you none of those exchanges on the 800 numbers or the dinar recaps have been approved by U.S. Treasury. Not a one. Now, I'm not here to be judgmental and overly critical of those people who are reporting that, other than the fact that I say they're being used. They've been saying, my sources are saying this and this and this, and they're always quoting their sources, but their sources will never tell them who has the money or where it's coming from. They never give tangible, credible evidence to back up what they're saying. Now, let's go back to Nasara Gassara. Same exact thing. There are parts of Nasara that can take place. But who in the world is going to have the authority to step into the existing banking system, to throw them out the window, to override the president, to override Congress, and put this into place? Who has the power to do what they talk about? Nobody, unless it's being authorized by the president and Congress and Treasury. That stuff just isn't going to happen. People don't stop to think about the logistics of what it takes place to happen. Let me go back and use a couple illustrations. There was a really good report, and this man is a good man, and his name is Charlie Ward, and he's the new guy that everybody's talking about, and he puts stuff out, and you know, he's got 100,000 followers that are listening to him, and he's talking about Nasara, and he had a guest on there that talked about Nasara, and he said he did all his research. No, he didn't do his research. He didn't go back far enough. If you go back and you trace the history back to the very beginning of the whole Nasara concept, it started, yes, as a bill and program that was sponsoring the farmers' issues. And what got passed in Congress was just that and that alone. It had nothing to do with, removing all the debt and all the stuff and the money coming out and all this other stuff. It had nothing to do with any of that. When the Nasara story that is now circulating, that Charlie Ward and all these others are talking about, it's been around for about 3 and 4 years, and it's circulated extensively. When it first started, it took off. And the lady who put the story out, the first one, she lived in the Denver area. So the Denver newspaper started doing some really great, what was called investigational research on her story. So they took her story and they took point by point and researched it to the hilt. And they basically said, and it was a series of articles. And the first article came out, she was holding to her guns. The second article came out, she was holding to her guns. And by the time the third article came out, they had made such a fool of her that she had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. She didn't do her research, and she was basically crazy in what she was saying, that she finally recanted, and she admitted 2/3 of what she wrote about was made up, fictional, and it wasn't true. But guess what? That's her story is still out there circulating around today. Now, folks, I have a background where I spent 25 years in the Army National Guard. I spent 4 years in active duty. So I've been around, that side of a little bit. A classic tactic of military warfare is called psychology operations, psychology tactics. And here's what they do. They take an event or an issue that is going to get a lot of attention, a lot of people are going to be interested in it, and then they put out about 30% of the story is true and accurate, so it captures the people, and then the rest, the 70%, is all false and fictitious. And they get the people wrapped up in the story, and then what they're doing is they're controlling the people. And they're keeping them focused on that, so they're not giving any attention to what's true of what they're really trying to get done. This whole 800 number series, Nasara Gasara, is a classic example of psychological operations. That somebody behind all this is putting out stuff that's about 30% true, 70% of it's false, but they're sucked into it because they want to believe it, and they don't know how to do the research of common sense, of step by step, to realize it ain't going to happen. Let me give you 2 illustrations. In the Nasara story, they said that the Supreme Court forced Congress to pass a bill, to pass this Nasara bill, and it got passed into law. And even in the story of the lady that started it, she said it was 36 members of Congress voted on the bill. Well, right there, you're out the window. The Supreme Court constitutionally has absolutely no authority over Congress to make them pass a bill. None whatsoever. They cannot do that. Those are 2 separate branches of government that are totally independent of each other, like I talked about earlier tonight. Secondly, the part of that, when it says that they forced him to vote on it, 36 members of Congress can't pass a bill and make it become law. It is the rules of Congress. You have to have a quorum in both the House and the Senate to pass a bill. And if I remember correctly, a quorum is 80%. So it takes 80% of the House members to vote on it, and then you have to have a 50% yes vote, and then it takes 80% of the members of Congress to vote on it with the 50%, and then it has to go to the president to be signed. The second part of the Nasara story says that when the bill came to Congress, that there were members of the military that came into the president's office and at gunpoint forced the president to sign the bill. What kind of world are they in? You've got members of the military forcing their commander-in-chief to sign a bill that's an illegal bill that only had 36 members of Congress vote on it? Folks, we don't understand what's going on in there. If somebody comes into the White House, members of the military with guns, before they even got to the Oval Office, the president would be notified. The Secret Service is immediately putting the White House on lockdown. The president himself in his office can press one specific button and the whole White House goes on lockdown. Nobody gets out. And there's enough Secret Service people in there that they would overtake those military people with their guns, and then they would end up being tried for treason and executed by basically pulling a military coup on their commander-in-chief. Now think about that. But here's all these people running and saying, the president was forced to do it at gunpoint from the military, and the Supreme Court forced the Congress to vote on it. Folks, they're crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. But this is the classic example of psychological warfare. You take a very emotional issue. You take people that are putting a lot of hope into the 800 number system, and you put a lot of people that have a lot of hope in this Nasara Gesara, and the stories start rolling. And it's the classic example. If you tell a story enough times, even though it's a lie, the people accept it as truth if it's told enough times. And behind the scenes, obviously, there is somebody that's pulling off that they're feeding these people with this information. And that's where the real controllers are. And why would they be doing that? Because they want the masses focused on Nasara Gesara that's never going to happen, so they don't learn about the real private currency exchanges that we are involved in. Okay, now your questions, Peter.
Yeah, well, they're selling stuff on these groups. So I don't. You got to look at it like it's a scam. I mean, they don't want to hear about what you're saying, and I tried to tell them. They just deny that I don't. Their information is correct. It's real, but they're clever, and somebody must be feeding it. Yeah. So it sounds real, but it just can't be.
Hey, I've been watching this closely for almost 5 years now. Okay. And I mean, because remember, I'm the person that spent 12 years in the state legislature. I understand the legislative process. I understand the process of making law. And I understand what it has to go through the legislative branch and the administrative branch and the effects of the judicial branch. None of that stuff. And those are only 2 examples. And there's a number of others that I could talk about that they have no basis for. Again, they never address where's the money coming from. And again, the dollars they talk about, you're talking $15 to $20 trillion that's going to cost for the numbers that they're running out there on how many people are going to get paid and what the rates are going to be. Who has that kind of money? That's more than the whole complete annual combined gross domestic product of the United States. And that kind of money is just going to be distributed into the banks of these thousands of people? Crazy. Crazy. See, they're not thinking through. They're so caught up into the emotional substance of it that they've lost their ability to be rational and reasonable about how accurate can this be. I made my statement.
You know what? They started getting me excited about it, but you kind of like with the wind, off the sails, and so. It just doesn't. I just can't believe what they're saying could happen, and it's insane for people to listen to it.
I know, and I've been saying very clearly now for 4 years that nothing coming out of those blog sites is accurate. Nothing. It sounds great. It's great classical psychological warfare.
You've been correct.
I said it's a great example of psychological warfare, a classic example of it. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Anything? Okay. All right. Now, a couple of people have emailed in, and they wanted me to share some information on this new QFS system, the quantum financial system. And I'm going to tell it to you as I understand it. I know there have been other stories that have been out there that have talked about this, but I'm going to tell it to you as I understand it. We lived in a system where if you needed to move large sums of money internationally, let's say from the United States to Germany, I'm using this as an example, you would have to run it through the banks, and they would use what was called the SWIFT system. That was the system of how you sent money wire internationally from country to country. When the money would go through the SWIFT system, it would take somewhere between 3 to 5 days. From the day that I sent it from my bank account, it would take 3 to 5 days before they would have it expendable at their bank account in Germany. Well, what happens is in those 3 to 5 days, the banks get what they call float. So the money is inside their bank, and then when this happens tens of thousands of times a day with millions and millions of dollars, they get to take these scores of millions of dollars every day and invest it. And that's how they make money behind the scenes in the off-market manner by using the SWIFT system, the delayed process of the SWIFT system, to make money. Now, the new system, the quantum financial system, what it has done, it has brought in what is called basically blockchain technology. And it's put it on a super fast process. And so that when you transfer the money, it's just as though you're transferring it from bank to bank in the United States. You transfer it, and within 5, 10 to 20 seconds, it's at the bank account in Germany, from America to Germany. It moves it extremely fast. It's very proficient. See, in the old SWIFT system, professional computer hackers could hack into that money while it was sitting there in the bank, and then they could redirect it towards their checking accounts and steal the money. And that was happening a lot. In my conversations with the Dragon families, which remember, they use what is called off-market banks, off-record finances. These are not a part of your official banking systems. They're off-market banks. And then when they would try to move scores of millions of dollars, it would get stolen by these professional hackers. So they could not safely and faithfully move very large sums of money without it being stolen. The new quantum financial system stops that. The money moves almost instantly. And secondly, because it's using blockchain technology, they can't get by with it. If they attempt to hack it and steal the money, there is a traceable record right to the individual computer of where it's located and the name registered with that computer, so they could basically, within a day or two, they can arrest the person for stealing all that money. That's what the new quantum financial system is doing. Now, there's other things that people are talking about it. I'm not certain I agree with the other stuff. I don't think it's a complete new banking system that's going to come in and totally take over and shut down the existing banking system. Again, folks, this is another one of those put on your common sense hats. The central banking system in our world runs and controls the world's money supply. The people who are saying the new quantum system is overtaking their system are saying these extremely powerful banking systems are just going to fold up shop and walk away and let them have it. Crazy. They're power people. They're running control of the money of this world. They're just not going to fold up shop and walk away. The quantum system would have to forcefully overtake the existing banking system. And I don't see that happening. I should say that's what some of the people are talking about. Now, the quantum system for transferring money, my understanding is that's great, that's correct, that's up and that's working and that's operating. And for those of us in the currency exchange, we needed that. We needed to know that there was a safe method to transfer the very large sums of money to us personally, so the money wouldn't get hacked into and stolen. That's one of the things we've been waiting for. Okay? So, there's a couple other people that have questions, so let me go there. I'm going to go to, let's see, Peter, I haven't taken you off the air yet. I need to do that. Okay. Let's go to the next number. The area code is 868. So 868, you're on the air here with Dave. What can I help you with?
Hi, Dave. In the past, you said that for the Tier 1 people, you would have to go to Hong Kong before any money could be transferred. Is that still the case?
No, I never said that it was Tier 1 people. I said that...
No, round one.
I did make a statement like that probably around 2.5 to 3 years ago. That is no longer the case. That is no longer the case. Nobody has to go to Hong Kong to get their money. No.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you. And one other thing,
Sure.
I don't know whether you could answer this. It's about the Meta one. The meeting yesterday, I couldn't get the whole thing, the whole meeting. I missed basically the last 15 minutes. Did they say when it's going to go live to the public?
No, they didn't.
Okay, right.
No.
Thank you.
They said it's close, but they couldn't give a date. Okay?
Sorry, I missed that.
They said it was close, but they couldn't give a date.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Okay, now we're going to area code 276. It's coming up. Let's see here. Area code 276, you're on the air. What can I help you with?
Yeah, it's David King. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So my question is also about Meta One. I actually had to miss the whole thing. I was wondering if you would want to just give a brief overview of what that call was about.
No, I would, but I can't. I'm still involved with the SEC issue, and I can't really comment on anything about Meta One until that gets settled. What I would encourage you to do is contact them. My understanding is they did record it, and if you're a coin holder, you can have access to that.
Okay, thanks
Okay.
a bunch.
All right. Okay, thanks. Yeah. All right. Is there anybody else that wants to call in with questions? I got some more time. Remember, phone number is 515-605-9356. If there's anybody else that would like to have any questions calling in. If not, I think I'm probably ready to call it a night. So, well, folks, the program went a little longer than I thought tonight, but I gave a great history and background of the politics and how law is made and how all three branches of government can create law and why it's so extremely important to the Republicans in the Senate and the President to get the new Supreme Court member appointed before the election. And, folks, you can pretty much guarantee it's going to happen. And the Democrats are going to raise all kinds of stink about it. They're going to try to do everything they can to create this impression that please don't do it. It's all about power and control because the majority party has the control. And I've shared with you that the real power in Congress resides with 5 of 535 members, and they're controlled by the money because the money controls what goes on there. So, and then I went in and talked about other issues. So with that, I don't see anybody else. Oh, I did have a new person just come in. Area code 562. I'm coming up here. Area code 562. I think you're new, aren't you?
Who, me?
Yes.
I did call in once, and I met you a couple times at a couple of the workshops. My name's
that's
Jimmy
fine.
from
Well,
Southern California.
Share with us your name and what's your question.
Okay, yeah. First name is Jimmy.
Okay.
And I met you at a couple workshops in Southern California, and I also called in one time before. Just a very simple question. My question is, if in the unlikely event that Trump does not get reelected, would that put the brakes on the whole currency exchange thing?
My understanding is no. Now, I can't guarantee that from a strong quantifiable source, but I've had a person that's pretty well informed share with me that Biden is aware of these funds and he's very supportive of the funds being released because he knows that this money is what's going to basically soften this global collapse, and we desperately need it to be put into place. and he's aware of that. And he's
Oh, okay.
supportive of it.
I had no idea.
Okay, that's what's been
I had
told
no idea
to me.
Biden was in favor of it. So.
Well, that's what's been told to me, but I can't clarify that as what I call a tangible, reliable source. But that's what I've been told from someone who I would consider to be reliable. But I always try to make sure are my statements, are they tangible, or are they just someone's opinion with credibility? And I would say it's an opinion with someone who has good credibility. That's how I classify that statement.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Right. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Bye now.
Okay, yeah, bye-bye. Okay, well, folks, I think we're about ready to call it an evening unless somebody else is going to come up here really quickly, and I don't see anybody else. So let's start the jingle. There it is. Thank you very much, and